Okay, it's so nice to have you all here. We've been wanting to do one of these calls. They're hugely uplifting. It is a little bit different than your normal calls, whereas there's not really going to be much of a chance for quirky questions or anything, because we have 3 people on the call, and I want to make sure to get to all the good stuff throughout the call. But if you do have anything, any messages or anything you would like to go through, I will be sending the chat to Nancy, Lauren, and Laura after the call. So if you want to say hi or anything, definitely throw it in the chat box and I'll send it to them. So this call came about, I wasn't sure how it would work out the first time, but the journey we went through the 3 narrators' careers, Barbara, Craig, and Kim, was insightful and interesting. And the feedback I had from so many people after that call and after it went on YouTube was that they appreciated getting to see their own journey in the call. And I think that we are so blinded by all the social media flash, and I'm guilty. I just signed up for the Jonathan Tilley's Instagram challenge because I was a flunky last time. I did one video and thought, oh gosh, this is hard. I'll do my homeworks another time. I signed up for that in January. I'm all for Flash, but I also want to get a really good idea of who we're working with, who our fellow narrators are, what their life as a narrator is like. So I'm going to start with Laura, because you happen to be up on the screen. You're first up. So 10-year-old Laura, and I've got certain questions. We're going to go through certain segments, and then I'll switch to each person and we'll go around that way. So can you please tell me about little Laura, 10-year-old Laura, dreams, hopes, ambitions, who you were? Go.
I was a very outgoing child. And when I was 10, I was really into horses, did a lot of horseback riding, just running around the neighborhood, was lucky where I grew up to have the opportunity to be able to run the neighborhood. But 10-year-old Laura was going to be the next Dorothy Hamill.
Oh, was it ice skating? Is that ice skating?
Yes. I would go out in my backyard and there'd be this puddle of frozen ice, and I would just spin around on that tiny piece of ice. I think back on it now and I'm like, what was I doing?
Were you like a lonely child? Did you have a lot of brothers and sisters, a lot of friends? Were you hang out with people, or were you kind of like in your own world?
No, I have an older brother and I have a younger brother. The families that were closest to us had all boys, so I was sort of the token female, sorry. And then my best friends lived down the street and they owned a horse farm, and I spent most of my time at that house. So I was never lonely. They had 7 kids. It was like being at the Kardashians before there were Kardashians. You sit in their kitchen and just listen to the craziness of their household. So,
did you ride horses?
Oh yes.
Really?
Yeah.
So did that stay with you your whole life, like kind of being sporty and athletic?
Yes. I've always been very sporty and athletic. Yep.
I'm jealous of that because I haven't. I always wanted to be.
Yeah.
So
I haven't ridden in about 10 years, but I've always been an athletic person, all through high school and beyond.
I love that. I wish I was somebody that actually enjoyed that kind of thing. So was there a love of books at that age, a love of TV, or was there any of these acting things coming out when you were that young?
Not a lot of TV. My parents were not big on TV, which was great. I was a huge reader. Maybe a little bit older than 10. I was going to be on Broadway. And then as I got older, I was like, oh, I'm going to write for Broadway or be the MC in Joseph is the Technicolor Dreamcoat. That was like my favorite role, was that MC role,
I love that.
Have you seen that play?
No, I'm embarrassed to admit, because I'm probably the only one in this audience that hasn't, but I haven't.
So
I need to check it out.
I knew every word to that role. There's a narrator off stage that's telling the story. She starts off the story and it's beautiful. it's a beautiful role. But anyway, I
I
digress.
think it's one of those ones that somehow I missed, so I need to revisit. I need to, like, some things that like everyone's seen and you haven't. And
Yes.
so happy childhood,
Yes, very
happy childhood, room for dreams.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can I please go to Nancy?
You may.
Hello, Nancy. So 10-year-old Nancy, tell us about her.
Extraordinarily shy.
Really?
Oh, yes.
I'm shocked. I'm actually shocked by that.
Major introvert.
Wow.
Enough so that my parents sent me to acting lessons to get me out of my shell. They didn't have any idea what they were getting themselves into.
It obviously worked.
I'm still a shy introvert. I'm not a party person. I do not like crowds of people. I'm not confident around people, especially live, but I've been in the restaurant industry and working with people directly for so long that we put a face on it, and I guess I'm just not afraid of them. It's a difference between being, okay, I guess I have to do this, and actually being uncomfortable with it. I'm not uncomfortable with people. I just don't like them very much. I like individuals. I don't like people as a group.
I can see that. After the last few years, I can kind of get that. I can kind of get that. Like, okay, so 10 years old, what were you doing? Were you loving books, loving sports?
I was reading. I found out when my eldest child was in kindergarten that there's a thing called being a hyper reader, where you're so engrossed in what you're doing and what you're reading, things can be going on around you, you don't notice them. And apparently that's exactly what I was. My teachers would say a bomb
that's
could
not
go
normal.
off.
It's like a thing. Is it a good thing? Does it make kids more intelligent?
I have no idea. I've never had that tested. But I do know that I was so enthralled with reading and reading an awful lot that I would ignore all of the things going on around me. When I get into a book, I really get into a book. So I was that shy kid off in the corner.
You're talking to an audience of audiobook narrators, so you know that every single one of us is going, yes, that's what you got to do. Okay, so dreams, ambitions, thoughts of the future, or living in the moment?
I think at the time I lived in the moment. I think that because I was encouraged to act and put myself out there a little bit more, I started dreaming about that kind of thing. And over years and maturity, I've drawn back from it. I like having that as a background, and I still occasionally go out on stage and do things, but it isn't the drive it once was. I guess I'm just not looking for other people's approval anymore, which I think happens to most of us once you've hit 50 and above. You stop caring quite as much what other people think.
Okay, so I'm going to leave you at 10-year-old Nancy, and I'm going to hop on to Lauren. Thank you very much. I love this. And I'm noticing you were all kind of the same when you were 10. We could have had a great time, all of us, I think. Thank you very much, Nancy. Lauren, 10-year-old Lauren, tell us about your life.
All right. So I loved musical theater movies. So like I was banned from watching Grease and Annie because I watched it so many times my family was tired of it.
Did you sing? Did you try to sing through the house as well?
They weren't as annoyed with that. My mom tried to take that and be like, "You're singing for my class." Like it's just like, those are songs I don't like though. Like I liked what I liked and I wanted to do what I liked, but it wasn't always, She's like, "Well, I want you to sing this one." I'm all like, "Why am I singing a country song to your class?"
What was her class? Was she a teacher?
She was a teacher. She did, I think at that point she was, because she's done everything. She's done kindergarten. I've sang for her kindergarten class. I've sang for her high school graduates. And then she was a literacy specialist for some time for ESL students.
Wait, I'm confused.
So,
Okay, so did your mother, like, what, she just called you and said, okay, you're going to show up in front of high school graduates. Weren't you like embarrassed, like, and like sing in front of them? I mean, that's like some
I wasn't
training.
embarrassed because I've been in a choir since I was since 6th grade. So she would be like, oh, you did so well at your concert. Yeah, like that's a group concert. She's like, I want you to sing this random song in front of my high school graduates. I'm all like, why? Why that song? Why that song was basically,
Yeah. But it's great it's great training. Think about what your mother did. That was brilliant training, because the things that are handicaps for a lot of actors, psychologically, she got you right through there at a very young age. It's like you've got no shame. You'll just show up in front of a group of like judgmental teenagers and start singing.
No,
that's brilliant.
I mean, definitely, like, if judgmental people, I still do my own thing. No problem with that. But it was the material that I kind of like me.
So happy childhood, independent, brothers, sisters, a loner.
Have an older brother and sister. They're twins. So they were older enough that like they were doing their own thing. And, I was, they were either watching me, old enough to watch me, or doing their own thing. So it was close in a sense that I knew if they brought me with them, I had to behave if I wanted to come with them again.
Oh.
But if I got a little too like, they're like, you're not coming with me next time.
So role models, were you like, I'm going to grow up and be like them?
Definitely tried. My sister was always like placed in cross country. I tried to do cross country, could not place for the life of me. And like her family is still like her whole, her husband has done Ironmans. My niece is like top of the state in cross country and track. And
wow,
the little one, she's 13, trying to figure what exactly she wants to do sports wise, but she also runs. So, and I'm over here like, I'm walking.
Well, you got the perfect job for it. We don't have to move at all if we don't want to. Thank you very much, Lauren. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to Laura again. Now we're getting to the tough bit. Say something, Laura, so you pull up on screen.
Yes,
okay.
I'm here. Okay.
So, as always happens, you got lucky, huh? Because you get the question first. Everyone else gets time to think up their answer. As always happens, life is never a straight road. So who we want to be and who we think we're going to be at 10 years old isn't necessarily, and I find it hits like maybe sometime in high school, end of high school, college, the world has other ideas, especially for creatives. Can you tell us at what point the road, if it did, started swerving for you, and how you felt for that, what you did? What was the path like when you got to that age where the world starts saying, nope, you're going to be a drone like the rest of us, and that's it? Or whatever it looked like for you. Tell us about that part of whatever you're comfortable with sharing.
Wow. Well, yeah, a great question. I was head of Dramat in high school, thought I was going to be going to theater, as I mentioned, Broadway, whatever. But I had anxiety attacks. I did not know it was panic or anxiety at the time. I just muddled through it. But by the time I left high school, my parents were very strict. Absolutely, theater was out of the question. No way. Not going to happen. I thought I was going to drive to California and be an actress.
Wait, because they were concerned that it wasn't a stable career.
No.
Yeah.
Yes. I was going to become an accountant, and that was that, even though I sucked at math. Sorry. So I really struggled with that. And I thought, what did I do that made me feel good? And I always went back to fitness, the sports. So I opened a gym and loved it.
Wait, you opened a gym?
Yeah.
That's quite a brave step. I mean, like, I'd be like, can I work reception at a gym?
Okay. Well, yes, that's how I started. I found an ad in the paper to be a assistant to a gym manager. So I was her assistant. And when I mean assistant, I was picking her kids up, her dry cleaning, but I learned the business. And then I got certified as an instructor. And then I became a manager of 2 health clubs. And then I started to see this trend in the health club industry about how people would not join a club until they were thin and fit. And I was like, that's completely not the point. So I had a dream to open a club where anyone would feel welcome and come in, not be judged for who they are, where they were in their fitness journey. And I accomplished that. I mean, I went back to school and took accounting, marketing, all that stuff. And
wait, how old are you? So how old are you at this point? This is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I worked in the field. I didn't open my gym until I was 27. So there was a lot of other things going on around there too. Dogs, animals, training, that sort of thing was also a side gig for me.
Were your parents like impressed when you opened the gym? I bet they were.
Yes, they weren't there for opening day, but that's a whole nother, story for my shrink. But yeah, I guess, yes. Yeah, and I loved my gym. I absolutely loved the gym. For personal reasons and the landlord wanting to split up the 10,000 square feet I had into 3 retail spaces, I didn't renew my lease, and that was fine because I knew a year in advance I wasn't going to, so I never I never had anyone buy a membership longer than I was going to be open. So it was such a great community. People to this day still come up to me and say how much they loved my gym, and that's a great feeling for me. It was a great accomplishment. Anyway, I was sick prior to opening the gym. I was very sick and I was bedridden for about 3 weeks. And my father came into the room. I had to move home. I was very sick. My father came into my room and he had a cassette player and he put a tape in it. And it was a recording of Jurassic Park. And I'll never forget it because I was laying in bed and I couldn't get to turn it off because it was too far away and it was scaring the crap out of me. And in my head, it clicked. I was like, this is acting. This is something I could do one day. And it just always stuck with me. And from that day forward, I was obsessed with audiobooks, listening to audiobooks. Yeah, by the time the gym had closed, I had 2 kids. And as I mentioned, I love dog training and I had been doing a lot of rescue and dog work. So I went and worked for a guide dog school. So I've been working in the visually impaired community since 2003. Loved that job. Then a moment hit me and I thought, if I don't do audiobooks now, I'll never do it. So I quit the job, bought a microphone, did all this research and looked at my husband and said, oh no, not the right time. This is a full business. I have kids. I can't be doing this. So I went back to my job. They took me back and I changed my game plan. And I went to a radio reading service that our clients, our guide dog clients, were very familiar with. And I volunteered for them because I thought I'll just see if I can get my chops in this. And
okay, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you because I think we're going to come close to the next question. So I want to preempt that. I don't want to get to the good bit quite yet. I do have a question for you. I'm curious about though, because I've been listening to audiobooks since audiobooks were ever invented, and I felt that it was my thing because nobody else showed any interest in my life at all. So when I finally did audiobooks, I was considered a newbie when you start. Deep down, were you the teeniest bit pissed off about that? Like, do you know how long I've been listening to audiobooks? Do you feel like, as a longtime listener, you'd been part of it for like years and years and years before you even started recording? Do you feel ownership towards it because you'd been listening for so long?
I do.
Yeah.
I don't feel pissed off, but I do feel a little bit of ownership over it. And also I should never have gone back to the job. I should have just done it because it was right around when ACX was brand new. And if I had just done a little more research.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to cut you off because the good bit's going to start. So thank you so much, Laura. That's perfect. Nancy, you're up.
Yes.
Dark nights of the soul, path not straight, that in-between time between where you are and who you are now and where you were when you were that joyous 10-year-old that could conquer the world, albeit without talking to anyone.
Oh boy. Well, I made it through high school by some miracle. Did a lot of acting at that time and was looking around for what I wanted to do next. I actually tried out for the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art and fell very firmly on my face, which was okay. Also, the Ringling Brothers Clown College. I also tried to get in there.
Oh my God, really? How hard was that?
Really.
Okay, we need to have a talk another time. This
was a long time ago. Eventually,
I want to hear every detail. I'm sorry, but later on, someday, you have to Zoom. I want to hear every single minute of it. Okay, so go ahead.
Eventually, I actually went to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting's broadcast training because it was literally down the street from where I was living, where I grew up, actually. I could walk there. And at that time, I didn't have my license, which really kind of became a problem. Oh, I was 17. I graduated high school when I was 16. I was a September baby. So, I was awfully young. I kind of wish they'd started me the year before because I really didn't have the maturity to be an adult on my own. Went to broadcasting school, got some of the skills. This was back in the days of tape and razors. But the only place in the Boston metro area where you could get a job was upstate Vermont, New Hampshire, way out in the boonies. And again, no car. So I worked for a while for a lady who raised Gordon setters for show dogs and lived with her kennels, which I smile every time Laura says anything about dogs, major dog person, and tried to figure out what I was going to do. And looking through the paper, little place that was on the T, I actually live on the Green Line in the Boston Newton area. Little place on the Green Line was opening up a little restaurant. They were looking for a kitchen assistant. And I've always cooked and I've always sewn and done handcrafts. And, if you can take bits and pieces of things and put it together, that's what I do. Well, it turns out that it had been the former executive chef at the Ritz-Carlton in Boston who was opening his own place.
Wow. Did he yell at you a lot? I've always been yelled at anytime I've tried to job in a restaurant.
No, but it comes around to that. It's really where I found my voice and found my feet.
Oh, so you're the yeller.
If I yell the word quiet in a crowded kitchen, it goes quiet. There's a drill instructor voice that's used in kitchens, and I've put it to good use.
I love that.
So I worked with him for a while. He had a real obnoxious sexist as a sous chef. We did not get along, oddly enough. Ended up going through various inns and hotels and ended up in a place called the Pillar House in Newton, also, ironically, really close to where I grew up, and worked there for a while. It was quite famous at the time, and married the manager. So it's been 30 years since then.
That's so... Okay, wait. Sorry, I know this isn't part of the conversation, but so was it like eyes met across a crowded room or worked together for a year and yelled and argued and then finally realized one day you were mad? Can you tell that I've been doing a bunch of romances lately?
Yeah, it didn't work.
No.
There were two young people within my age range, the sommelier and Paul, my husband, and they were both at management level. And every once in a while would have racks of lamb that came in damaged so that instead of 4 bones for a plating, there would only be 3. And those would be served to the managers. And Paul always got 2 bones and Patrick always got 1. They say that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. And yeah, we're still together.
And you fed him.
Of course I fed him. I'm still feeding him.
Okay. Restaurant. Were you happy at this point? Was there any feeling of like, what about my dreams? Because restaurants can be all encompassing though. So
that's exactly what they are. They take over your life. And I don't think that I'll ever not have a foot in a restaurant somewhere. Even now,
Yeah.
I waitress 2 nights a week because there's no other place that you can look at people, literally stare at them, watch their every movement, see what characterizations they use, and it's actually your job to do that. No, I'm just paying attention to you to see if there's still food on your plate or you need a new glass of wine. It isn't anywhere near as obtrusive as it would be if you were just in a social setting.
But it's also, am I wrong that it's a bit like a dance and a puzzle at the, like those virtual reality games where you're shooting this and that, like, you know where everything is at every point. You're handling a massive amount of information. You're in complete control and command of it. And so it must be very satisfying at the end of like a busy day, because you're a normal person. And I've tried to work in restaurants. I literally had a chef throw a skillet at my head, and we won't bring up the 6-tier cake I dropped at the feet of the French family because I'm bad. It must be very satisfying when you have a knack for it.
It is, but I will confess that I have poured an entire thing of lobster bisque into the bride's shoes. I have dropped a pizza down someone's back. I've had shrimp cocktail fly through the air and land on the back of a camel hair coat. I mean, these are inevitable. They're going to happen.
Yeah.
You sort of get them out of the way, know that it's going to happen, and deal with it when it does. And that's the attitude you need to have.
And you don't take it as a character flaw, just a lesson.
You have to. I mean, you'd be destroyed if you were to take every criticism, if you were to take every rude customer and not be able to back away and say, hey, that's not about me, that's about the bad day they're having, you'd never survive in that industry.
Yeah, I didn't. I was bad.
Many people
really
don't.
I got so offended all the time. It's like, okay, so I'm going to leave you here.
Okay.
Because I don't want to get to the good bit until the next section. So thank you very much. Nancy, Lauren, let's have a chat.
Okay.
So
All right.
Lauren, at what point did things not go so well for you? Was there a point where you had a challenge and you didn't know, you floundered, or did you just jump straight from being 10 years old to being an awesome audiobook narrator and everything was peaches and cream?
I'm laughing because part of the story already. So went straight from college to California. I spent like a month at home just reorganizing stuff and trying to see if acting was something I could do because I was a theater major. And basically went through with the family voices in my head that I need a job in order to live, in order to feed myself, in order to pay rent. So got a job at a production company did reality TV. Started off in accounting, worked my way up to post-production as a assistant editor, and was
let me stop you. When you got that job, were you just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is my life, I'm the luckiest person on earth? Or did you not realize what you'd like just gotten into?
Well, initially, the love of like, I can live here now.
Yeah.
Because I was telling everybody, it's just like, if this is just a 3-month summer vacation, I will be happy. Because, again, everybody was thinking that I had to put everybody at ease that my expectation was maybe it's not going to be Hollywood. Maybe I come home because I just wanted this experience of like trying it.
Yeah. So you weren't writing home to mom and dad going, guess what? I've just been hired as a bunny. I'm on my way. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So I got like, the main show at the production company was sports science. So there was like a recognizable show that I could be like, oh, I'm I'm walking past the sports science set to get to my little cubicle. So that was, it was cool to have, like a named show that people recognized. Worked on some paranormal ghost hunter shows on my time there, and then continued on to some shows that weren't, and in between, because shows aren't always picked up and there's like the dead spaces, so I would like waitress in between those and all that, did some extra work, and I couldn't necessarily balance that and acting, so when the shows got heavier, based in like drug cartel, active shooter documentaries, and cult docuseries, there was a point where I was just like huddled in the couch watching cartoons, and my boyfriend at the time was just like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm in my feelings, leave me alone." He's like, "Why don't you try something like that? Like, you watch these cartoons all the time when you're like doing this, like try something like that." I'm all like, "You serious?" He's like, "Yeah, go for it." I'm like, "Okay."
What a good boyfriend. And also it is hard because it's like when you narrate audiobooks, I don't want to jump that far ahead yet, but everyone's like, "Oh, just get a survival job as well." It might work out on the calendar, but when you have, as you say, a drug cartel on your mind, it's not always so hard to immediately like give all your focus to something else in those extra hours of the day. Do you know what I mean? So it's quite good that he encouraged you. Did you go ahead and do it? Did you go ahead and do something else at the same time?
So what started off happening was like, with that seed in my brain and still working nights, I think one night was just like kind of, it was tedious, and I think it was just like, and it was LA, so I'm like, voiceover workshop things, whatever. And
manifest voiceover jobs.
well, it was that voiceover conference was like, I think 2 weeks away.
Okay.
And that's what's her name? Joan Baker? No. Forget her
It
name.
might be Joan Baker. I think Joan Baker is somebody. I'm really bad with names, but I think you're right.
She puts on this conference, and at that time it was at Warner Brothers. So they're like, tour the Warner Brother lot. Come learn about the voiceover things. There's plenty of panels that you can sit in and watch. I'm all like, fine. Got a ticket to that. And yeah, just sat through a bunch of panels and
Do I have to stop you? We got to stop before you get to the audiobook part, though. Are we getting close?
We're getting close, because
okay.
I will say, like, I started doing just random voiceover classes, but I do remember the panel of audiobooks, and this, I wasn't considering audiobooks at the time. I was like, animation. But I always remembered the audiobook panel because they said audiobooks are the only part of the industry that doubles in sales every year, and that has not stopped.
Oh, wow.
So that was my takeaway, and that like sat in my, back of my mind for years until I finally
took the plunge. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Lauren. I'm going to ask Laura to come back now.
Okay, hi.
Hi. Now, this question is not going to be exactly what you expect. Rather than jumping straight into how you made the leap into audiobooks, I'd like to really give some thought to, in the whole surrounding audiobooks, and it could be like the day I got my first book, and it can be in any order that you want it in. The absolute lowest moment, the worst moment, and the best moment. and how it felt, and especially the worst moment, how you got through it and came out on the other side, and what you're maybe what your thinking was at that moment and what your thinking is now looking back at it.
Okay. It's hard to find a lowest moment. I really
Start with the best then.
Well, the best moment was when I got my first book off ACX. I'll never forget that day.
What was the book? Tell us about it. Tell us how you found out, how it felt. Tell us everything.
Well, I was working with Sean Pratt at the time, and he said, "Why aren't you auditioning?" Why? I said, "I don't know." And so I auditioned for 3 books, and one of them I really wanted. It just resonated with me. It was a very light, Hallmarky type of romance, and I thought, okay, I know I could do this. And not knowing what I know now, I emailed the rights holder again, said, "Hey, have you made a decision about this?" And she got back to me immediately and said, "Oh, yes, I loved your audition. I'm going to hire you. You're hired. I'll send the contract after this weekend. It's my son's birthday." And I was like, "What?"
Oh, that's wonderful.
It was Mother's Day. I'll never forget it. Yeah, it was a great feeling because, okay, so here's my lowest moment, I suppose. When I talked with my parents about my decision to do this, my father literally looked me in the face and said, "You will never break into that business."
Why? Did he say why? Did he?
I mean, he took pains to explain why I wouldn't get in that business. I didn't have the experience. It was too competitive. It was a dream. I was wasting my time.
Oh, no.
On and on. So yeah, that would definitely be the lowest point, which is why I think the highest point was when I got my first book. I mean, nothing can take that away. I don't care if I don't get another audiobook ever. That is how happy I am with that moment.
So so when he told you that, did it put you off? Did it delay you? What did you do with that? And what did you tell yourself to get? Because when it comes from your father, it's hard.
Yeah. And it's not the first time that I've gotten that sort of feedback from him. So it just made me more determined, quite frankly. And what he didn't know at the time was I created a business plan. I created a 5-year business plan of how I was going to get into this business. And
I think I remember you saying that, which I'm fascinated by, actually, because did you get that? Had you already created a business plan when you created your gym? Is that how you knew how to do it?
Yes. And I did one for a nonprofit I worked at. So this was my 3rd business plan. So yes, I knew how to do it.
And did it give you confidence does it give you confidence, a business plan, or more certainty?
It gave me confidence, but it also gave me focus, and it gave me a way to stay on a path and create milestones to get to a certain goal. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's extremely helpful, and it works for my personality. For me, it worked.
Yeah.
I don't like to do anything unless I am really know everything and I'm good at it. I just need to know everything.
Are you a perfectionist?
I am, but I have learned the hard way through this business that progress is not perfection. Perfection is completely unattainable. And that has been probably the biggest lesson I've learned. Okay,
so he tells you this, like what, one day you're at dinner or something, and then what did you do from there? Did you start implementing your business plan that day? Did you go home and cry? I would have gone home and cried.
I probably did cry a little bit because I was just so sick of hearing that attitude from him. But it just lit a fire under my butt, and I had already had the business plan going. So I just ignored it, and after I had my little cry fest or whatever, it was just hard because not just my dad, but my brothers, my mother, they all kind of thought it was a joke, like I was a joke. So it was just really, in my mind to prove them wrong. And I did.
It's funny that I actually Instagram, when you go on Instagram, there's all these videos and people telling you about life and, whatever, narcissists or whatever. And some woman came up on a video today, nothing to do with me. I just happened to see it. And she said that sometimes there's one child where like kind of everyone in the family just looks at them and they're like the family joke. And she said, ironically, that child is the one that usually ends up doing the best for themselves when they get older.
Mhm.
And it's
that is-
weird that that's like right before
That
this conversation. So,
It's true in this family.
but
You
you
know,
had already done the gym. So had he not been impressed? I mean, we don't want to go far into family dynamics because like,
the thing is I'm an odd person. When I was young, I knew I didn't want to have an office job. And I wrote down, I'm a big journaler, and I wrote down fitness, dogs, and books. And that's were the three things I wanted to do with my life. And I thought I was going to write a book, but then, audiobooks hit me with that sickness and whatever. And I've done all three of them. And I have no regrets. And I am the only one in my family who's ever actually done what they've said they were going to do, even though they all called me a joke.
because they did you a favor by doing that, because that's probably why then you got the fire in you and turned around and did it. We're all motivated by different things. So you literally turned the worst moment into the best moment.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's why that was the best moment. Mhm.
And I love the way you said that no matter what happens, that moment is always still there. It's always still good. So you're not perpetually chasing a better, best moment. You're
No, 'cause
appreciating the best.
nothing can take that away.
I love that. Okay, we're going to revisit this. I'm going to go to, I'm losing track now of where I am. I'm going to go to Nancy now, and we will touch base again shortly, if that's okay. I love that one. It was a very good. I think we learn the most from each other's highlights and lowlights, because I think we forget that they're normal and that everyone else has them. And that I can guarantee that your exact story won't just resonate. It will be someone else's exact story. And they might be one Thanksgiving dinner away from having heard that message. Do you know what I mean? We've just come through Thanksgiving. I wonder how many people sat at the kitchen table and announced they were going to be audiobook narrators. They're at the point that they're searching YouTube for videos on how to do it. And they're going to hear Laura, a successful, hugely successful audiobook narrator, say, I was told, not me, not that, it's not for me. And I love that, which is the whole point of this call. Thank you so much. Nancy.
Yes.
Yes. Lowest moment in your career and highest moment in your career, in either order, but relive the happy one for us so we can partake.
I definitely have my happy one. But I'll tell you about, there are two lowests. There's the funny lowest, where I learned that humor will solve a great deal of your problems. I was doing a live read of the newspaper for the visually impaired, or the print impaired, as we like to say. And unfortunately, we were doing a very serious story. It was about a building collapse, but unfortunately, it was also in Indonesia, where the names are fully normal there, but they sound like they might be a swear in English. And I stumbled across this woman's name. I said the name, and I started cracking up and turned it immediately into a cough. But I couldn't finish that story. And fortunately, I was working with another live reader who basically covered by saying, Nancy, are you okay? You seem to have something in your throat. I'll start with this next story. So, and that was live. I have no idea how many people were listening, but that was my, okay. Fall flat on your face because you're going to do it. Get it over with. Move on. I'm so
glad audiobooks aren't live sometimes.
Oh, me too. But I think my other low point is something that we all struggle with, the self-doubt. You can be really successful at something and still question whether you're any good at it at all. Like, why on earth did they hire me? Why didn't they hire me? They don't like me. You almost take it personally, and you have to really get that thick skin and realize it's not you. You sound like their fifth grade bully, or You sound exactly like their mother when you were a teenager and, she was nagging. There are elements about all of our voices that bring forth memories the same way scents do. But my high point,
no, wait. I'd like to stay with your low point.
You like my low points.
So it's a cyclical thing that, and I actually had a conversation with someone that was, they had experienced quite a lot of success and not run into a dry spell until much later. And they were like, oh my God, what the hell's wrong with me? I think it's like over for me. I'm like, oh no, it's just a dry spell. It's like guess what? Most of us have had hundreds. So it's cyclical. But at what point, how long before you had a good firm talk with yourself? Because it takes a little while to kind of grow that self-knowledge in this industry. How long before you were able to convince yourself this isn't like an end for me? Do you know what I mean?
It still goes on. I don't think that I'm ever going to give up on this, but realizing that I do come from the restaurant industry, which is remarkably tough in and of itself. I know what it is to fight through things. I think it would be much more difficult for someone who came in, got their first book right off the bat, got great reviews, and then they get a slump. When you build up from the bottom of, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm learning what I'm doing, oh, I made a mistake, slide back, climb up a couple more steps, slide back a little bit more when you do something else that maybe you shouldn't have done, climb up again, you've got a better handle on it, a better balance.
Yeah.
And an understanding that, there are going to be times that it's not that great. And you're going to have to fight through it. You just have to. You've got to be like Laura and tell your dad that, no, you're wrong. I'm going to do it anyway.
Did you ever think of quitting, or were you always like, I'm going to hang on?
On the outside, I've always been, I'm going to hang on. On the inside, I have had my times of sitting in the car, banging on the steering wheel going, God damn it, why did I do this? Why did I put myself into this position where I've put time and money and training? And oh my God, look how much money I've lost by doing all of this stuff. And I've only gotten a fraction of it back. But then I look at some numbers and I go, well, there's potential here to make that back. And
you find a way to convince. Yeah.
And there's also the fact that there's the old saying, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And you also have to step back and realize, like, I'm part of the sandwich generation. I was losing my mother and other elders in our family while I was raising my children. So there wasn't always time to do a book, to do any self-promotion, to look out for the next thing. Finally, my kids are now young adults. Most of the family has either passed or moved on to a place where they're safer. I have fewer balls in the air to juggle. So now I can concentrate on me and where I'll be for the next 15 or 20 years.
You get stronger. It's not that it necessarily gets easier, but and also a good thing not to do, like when you get like a really bad review, don't Google Julia Whalen's reviews and think, surely she gets them too, because she doesn't out of thousands, and you will feel worse.
You can look up Davina Porter, who did the Outlanders.
Yeah.
There is a 1-star review that was given to her because somebody didn't like her English accent.
Wow. And that's see,
there's
and that's
a
the
lot
thing.
Of idiocy in the world.
There's a lot, and then you have to ask yourself, because I did that, because I was like, people either hate me or they love me. No. And the love you people don't seem to balance out the hate you. So this is why I don't read my reviews, but I happen to cheat at one point. But I think you have to come to terms with, do I want to be a person that's loved or hated? I'd rather that than be not noticed. Not
everybody on the planet is going to like you.
And what you said about from the outside, the main thing I think when I think of Nancy is strength. And I think it's a confidence you get, but from working at a restaurant, to be honest, because you seem tough. Like if I was getting in a bare knuckle fight, I would want Nancy. You know what I mean? Which is good.
Yeah, but I was raised by a very tough woman. My mother was a very dragon-like personality. She was very supportive, but you wouldn't cross her. No one would cross
I
her.
love that. I wish I was like that. This is a trait I aspire to. Nancy,
Me too.
let's revel in the good moment. Tell us about the good moment in detail. Let us smell, hear, let us live it.
So twice I have been hired through Ahab. The first time was for Rikers, an oral history of Rikers Island.
Wow.
And I think that sort of tough personality trait speaks to some of the nonfiction that I do.
Yeah.
Because it does come across as serious, and I am fairly serious. I'd like to be humorous more than I'm serious, but by the same token, life can be serious.
Yes.
The second time I was hired by them, it was for some pieces in the 50 Years of Ms. magazine. Now, Ms. was the first magazine that my mother ever subscribed me to. This was in the 1970s. Yes, I'm not young.
That's a dream. That's a dream gig.
A real dream. They had me do a piece by Joyce Carol Oates, and I nearly died. You know, I was beside myself. I was so happy with that. And it was such a good experience. You know, it doesn't give me a whole lot more books that are going to pay the mortgage this month, but boy, was it fun.
Well, it's also an honor because Ahab's got a lot of people.
It does. Yeah. But I'm not sure how many of them are skilled with nonfiction, and that is sort of
lots. And you came through and shined. So don't even let that in your mind. I don't know, maybe there weren't no, you were amazing and got the gig.
It was a huge feather in the cap.
Yeah.
Huge.
It is.
Now I need to go and get more jobs, just like everybody else does.
Yeah. And it's ongoing. But how exciting. Do you remember the moment of where were you when you found out?
I got the email and I immediately started dancing around the house. I think my dog thought I was insane because I'm not a dance around the house kind of person. Called the husband, squealed. That's another thing I really rarely do. If I squeal, there's a problem. So yeah, it was definitely a bounce off the walls kind of thing. But,
I think that's the best part about this job is we are always one email away from something our personal. I don't even care about hugely successful book, but we're one email away from our personal most exciting job ever. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Nancy. We will carry this further. We've got Lauren in the spotlight at this point. Hi. Okay. Worst low moment. Best moment. Let us live it, breathe it, smell it, everything. Not the worst one, obviously. I don't want to have anyone trauma.
So I guess it's running it. It's going into it. I'm a toxic positivity person. So the worst moment happens. I'm all scrap that off the table. We're not even going to look at that for 10 years.
Wow.
So,
but does that not come back and kick you in the butt? Because I always do that. And then I end up getting sick, ignoring that kind of comes back at you somehow later on.
I immediately try crawling out of it, and then it's just leave it behind. And I think luckily for me, maybe not, I do believe I'm undiagnosed ADHD, so it's just out of sight, out of mind, out of sight, out of mind, out of sight. So I'm constantly just pushing it.
I can get that. I can understand.
is anybody else addicted to training? Because
Oh,
I definitely saw myself getting in trouble when I was like just trying different coaches, new coaches, and then all of a sudden I have an invoice that's coming in late, and it's just like, oh shit, there are bills.
yeah. But
And
it makes you
like
feel like you're working on something, like you're one step further. If you've hired a coach, you could possibly be rich in a month or two. If
yes, but like what you paid for one coach ahead of time, and
Yeah.
then another coach is like their invoice for it to be billed is like a week late, and then you're just sitting and a bill's coming. It's just like, okay. And it's like going back to like, I'm waiting for that one email. Where's that one email?
Yeah.
And you're
But-
just sitting in there and that like those emotions of like, what did I just do? What did I just do? What did I just do? So
But you say you're toxic, see, because the thing is you're laughing, but that's really, really scary, that feeling. And also, I wonder with coaching, I now have a budget every year, but the thing I've learned with coaching is sometimes do you find yourself hiring a coach because you think that they can give you that je ne sais quoi that you must be missing? And you find out afterwards that you already knew everything and you've just spent the money to have somebody reassure you.
I definitely do it to quiet the mind. There is a very working in both creative and technical. I've always been told I have a technically creative brain. You know, sometimes they can, when it comes to like the creative, you know, theater, blah, 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 even audiobooks, just like, I see you taking the note, but it's too technical and you gotta just like do it. And I'm like, do it? What? Like there's still so many like mechanical things going in my mind. I don't know how to quiet it. So it's like trying to find the right trigger words to quiet the mind to do it without overthinking it and putting every other layer in it.
You should buy a virtual reality headset. I'm telling you, girl, you could save so much money on coaching. They're on sale. It literally does. It changes your brain. It remaps your brain. So are you still doing that as much? Did you find a way to deal with it or out of it? Did you find a way to make peace with it? Because the money side of this job is a big, big challenge that we're all afraid to kind of talk about. How did you deal with it? Are you still dealing with it? What's your plan?
Oh gosh, I go through moments of like, I'm fine, everything's fine. And then like when I predict a dry spell, I start tunneling.
Yeah.
So it's like a weather forecast. I'm like, oh my gosh, I see it. I gotta fix it.
Yeah. The anxiety.
Yeah.
But you're foreseeing anxiety that might not actually arrive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to come back to this. I don't want to just jump. I know you would prefer that we just jump off of it really quickly, but I'm going to come back to this. But let's touch on the happiest moment.
Gosh, I mean, like, and I think this goes back to potentially maybe I definitely do have ADHD, but I'm not going to get tested for it. Is like, I just love so much of like getting any of the jobs that I've gotten. Whether, you know, single book, it's a series, getting paid for the book, like seeing my
You
sales
like the
jump up.
dopamine hit.
Like there's so
You're like
many, and, like,
perpetually chasing.
And I don't want to, I've never, I forget who, I think maybe Jessica Simpson at one point said something like, I don't ever want to be on top because once you're on top, you go down. It's just like, once I have that favorite moment, there's no way, you know, like
Yeah.
So
You know what? You're a challenge for me. I have to confess, you're a challenge for me because I so get it. It's like I live that, right? I'm the only thing I can say is, so it's a challenge because I can't ask an objective question because I'm like, oh my God, you're right. That's exactly the way to be. Just ignore the bad stuff and tunnel through. And my answer is, if it gets bad, just work harder. I'll like ignore the bank account, and I'll just, if I'm working 24 hours a day, there's no way I'll be in trouble. And then I'll just hire coaches and they'll fix everything, right? But I sound like I'm joking. Not necessarily virtual reality, but meditation, the most boring, horrible thing I've ever heard in my life. And I've tried it and I've hated it. But this way, because you're getting pretty lights to look at and it's dopamine, I found a way to like meditate. So my brain is kind of stopping that perpetual chase, because the thing I've noticed is, and I'm the same as you, so I'm exactly the same as you. When I asked Nancy and Laura what that moment is, let us visualize it. They are right there in that moment. When Joel asked me on my interview what my favorite book was, there was none, because I'm like thinking, what am I going to get tomorrow if I've got an email? And everything's equally exciting because it's that little like buzz, that little energy hit, right? Yeah. But it makes you fierce. It's why you're on this call. It's why you stood out when I first met you, because you're unfrigging stoppable. Because if you hit a roadblock, you think of a way around it. That's the thing I noticed about you from the very beginning. Nothing's stopping you, because by the time somebody tries to stop you, you're down the road, right? And somebody mentioned a dry spell, and you were the one suggesting, let's get them together, let's talk to them. You're always ahead, and it's you've got this fast, lively, active brain, but and it's brilliant because you don't live in your bad moments. You don't have that moment of, I can tell you my worst moment, here's the agony, the tears. You don't have it because you didn't notice it, because you were busy and you were on to the next good moment, right? But the thing is, and I challenge you and I, at some point, I'd like to have a moment like Laura and Nancy have, right now, I can't tell you any highlight of my career at all. Everything feels like a highlight the day I get the booking. But I'd love for us to still be able to move ahead and skip over the bad stuff and everything, but enjoy like a moment. You know what I mean? Like, you still can't think of one, can you?
Of a good moment or a bad moment? Or
a really, really, a moment that was like above all others. You're too fast.
I mean, I if I had to choose, it would be like my first publisher book.
Oh, tell us about that. When did you get the message? What did it feel like?
That was about a year ago.
What publisher was it? Do you mind saying? You don't have to say.
Blackstone.
That's huge.
Alien Vasquez, which is even huger in my like the franchise of Aliens. And like even just the character Vasquez, and like here I am, this little girly girl getting like this tough macho woman that people love. And like and it's so wild because like the first thing I did was tell my roommates we're watching Aliens tonight. And we're going through it, and like for like most ethnic characters around that time, I don't want to say most, but like a portion of the ethnic characters were done with like white people in makeup. This character is the same. And so much to the point where my cousin was just like, when I pointed this out, he's like, I thought she was just dirty. She's like an army soldier, but she was in cryo. It makes sense that like she's not dirty, but like that was just my thought process when I saw her. She's just dirty.
Wow, that's so sad. That's an indictment of. That's so sad.
But it was so
That's
common,
iconic.
though.
That's an iconic part then that you got, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's a huge moment. So
Yeah.
so do you celebrate? Do you celebrate good moments? Are you good at that? You watched Aliens, that's celebrating.
Yeah. I mean, I find ways to celebrate. I mean, it's usually something simple, like I get a bath bomb. Take a bath. But yeah.
I love that. I love that. Okay. I'm going to come back to you with the final question. But yeah, very, very good. I like that. We got a highlight moment. I didn't get any tears, but that's okay. I haven't had, you see, that's good. So people might not be so afraid to come on the calls anymore because nobody has cried on this show. So we're good so far. So I got one final question for you, Lauren. Thank you very much. Laura,
Yes.
can I hit you with one last question? I always ask for final words of advice. If we're going to leave the audience with one thing, what would it be? I'm going to kind of tweak that a little bit. Coming into this career, becoming an audiobook narrator, who you were when you very first started and who you are now. If you could give some advice, something that you've learned along the way, something that's been the most important or the most meaningful thing that you've learned since starting this job that you'd love to, because a lot of people watching this video might be just never having done an audiobook, searching YouTube to see what it's like.
Yeah. Yeah. It can apply really to anything new you're starting, I guess. But I learned early on that I just had to get comfortable sucking at starting something new. When you start, you just have to get comfortable knowing, okay, I suck. You just have to get over that and keep going. And so wherever you are in your journey, you just have to say to yourself, you are enough. Where you are right now, you are enough. And gosh, my favorite quote is, comparison is the thief of joy.
That's so right. Because sometimes when you get in front of that microphone, sometimes you forget like how to talk.
Yes.
Like at all.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And coming from a perfectionist, that's a big lesson to learn. Has it carried through in the rest of your life?
Well, I've kind of always been that way because I've always been very passionate about learning. And then whatever I'm doing, I'm very passionate about. Right now, I'm just more comfortable because I'm settled because this is my final thing.
Yeah.
So I just feel like I'm home.
Oh, I love that. You are home. Definitely are. Thank you so much, Laura. I love that. Was beautiful. Thank you very much. I'm going to pull up Nancy, please. Nancy?
Well, I have always been a really big fan of Scott, Jonathan Swift, and the whole idea of, well, Twain probably said it most succinctly. If you find yourself among the majority, think twice, which basically means take in all of the information that you can. Don't necessarily follow the hype. Take a step back, look at that information through a really long lens, usually of experience, and then make decisions. Because if you jump on every bandwagon, if you're influenced by every, oh my God, AI is coming to take our jobs, you're going to fail before you start.
Yeah.
You really sort of need to center yourself, get that ability to step back and take a look at the whole thing, and just realize, there's a confederacy of dunces out there. Doesn't mean that the people in this community are like that, but there are people on the edges who definitely are. So make your decisions, be very careful with your decisions, look at it thoroughly, and just don't do those knee-jerk reactions, including telling yourself that you suck, because you don't. You might not be experienced at something starting, but you're allowing yourself to learn. If you don't do it, you're never going to learn.
Check in with your gut.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And so many people start and they're so eager to please and do everything right. And I mean, I don't know
There's
how they
no
don't
one
go
path.
crazy. You can't follow all that advice out there.
No.
And some of it you shouldn't.
And not everybody is right.
Yeah.
You know, even those people who have great careers, they have a different path than you do. You know, I'm never going to sound like Johnny Heller. I'm not a guy from Chicago. Can't do it. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
I love that point because it is so subjective, and you have to
Mm.
remember that it's so subjective. And yeah, and I'm not saying that you should say to yourself you suck. I'm saying you need to be comfortable not being good at something and learning.
Yeah, because it's that thing with the crack in the cup of China. The crack in the China cup is what makes it the most beautiful, authentic, unique China cup.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I so love that. And also, I really love the fact that, like, you spilled something and dropped something in a restaurant too. It always bugged me that I wasn't ever any good at that. I thought, like, I'm really smart. Why can't I do this?
There's a lot that goes into it.
Thank
And
you.
experience is a great teacher there too.
Yeah, no, I got to the point I was going to ready to throw up before I'd walk to every table to take an order. So it was just not me. Thank you so much. This is wonderful. Lauren, you're on the hot seat.
Gosh, I feel like I had something and then it just kind of like poop. I would say try new things, step out of your comfort zone, and find ways to document it. I say try. I'm terrible at journaling, but I enjoy focusing on like the artist's way, the book, and like they do say like do a morning pages and kind of like run through everything in your brain for.
Do you do those?
I do spurts of those. Like there'll be a month where I hone in, I do it every day, and then 3 months where I don't, and then 3 days that I do, 2 days that I don't, and then 3 months I do. So like I'm a little everywhere with it, but when I do them, it's just like, this is why I do them.
Yeah. I've never done them. I always wanted to.
I think I notice a difference when I do them. Not enough to keep it consistent, but enough to remind me to go back to it.
So would you say that's the difference from when you started audiobooks to now in the way you act and what you do? Is that the biggest difference, that you're learning to record yourself and document it and notice the path?
I say it helps me appreciate the path.
Yeah.
Appreciate the path. There
Good
we go.
one. Good
Appreciate
one.
the path.
That's a good one. I love that. I do like that. You guys, I want to thank you so much for coming tonight. First of all, this was the call I needed. You noticed I was a tiny bit antsy when I got on the call. And now I feel very zen, like 3 of the smartest people in the industry. And I think it's exactly the way the first call was, what I wanted to achieve. The face of working, jobbing narrators. This is what we do. This is what the journey looks like. And it looks different for each of us, but we all got here, didn't we? You know what I mean? And we all approach things totally differently. You guys are totally different, but we're all doing it. And I love that. I do. I love that. I admire the 3 of you more than I can even say. And I'm grateful for your time and for joining me. And I've learned things from all of you along the path. I don't think you realize, because you aren't the flashy, I'm going to post on social media every time I move. None of you are like that. But there have been moments on this journey as an audiobook narrator that I've learned from the way you guys handle your business. I think you're fierce business women, all 3 of you. And I think keep doing that, because there are a whole bunch of us out there learning from each other, watching. So you give a lot, and you don't even realize how much it affects the rest of us. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now I'm going to cry. I said I've got no one crying. Now I'm going to cry. Thank you so much, guys. And thank you to the studio audience. As always, you're all gorgeous. Mwah! I'll see you later. Bye.